Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mordecai Rosen and Sam King.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Let me grab a clicker. I'd like to welcome you all to CA World 2017. My name is Mo Rosen. Mordecai is the longer version. And I'm the general manager of the security business here at CA. I am very pleased this year, delighted, to be joined on stage by Sam King, who's the general manager of our VERACODE business. Sam came to us with the acquisition of VERACODE back in March, where she was the chief strategy officer, and in that role, pivotal in building the leading pure-play application security testing company in the business. Welcome to your first CA World.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So Sam and I are going to tag team today to describe to you how we think that you can leverage security to be a competitive advantage in your digital transformation initiatives. And our presentation today will be a bit of a multimedia extravaganza. We'll chat with you for a little bit. We'll play a customer video. We're going to bring some customers and partners up on stage. And then we're going to be giving out some awards for some significant work that some of our customers have done with our products that we want to recognize. So if you heard Mike's keynote this morning, you'll realize he's the only one of us, the only one of the two of us that actually climbed the rock with Jimmy Chin. But he talked a lot about how CA is going to focus. Our vision is to help you all make your businesses, transform your businesses into a modern software factory. And the idea is for CA to provide that tooling and expertise that you need to speed your next generation applications and services to market. Our mission in the company is to eliminate the barriers between ideas and outcomes, and that's exactly what the modern software factory is intended to do. So as you heard, our portfolio covers the spectrum of agile management, which is managing the people and process associated with creating these new applications and services, to DevOps, which is the tooling for continuous integration, test, and deployment, and finally security, which is the underlying trust framework to build under your new businesses. And obviously that's the one that's near and dear to our hearts, and that's the one we're going to be talking to you about today. Ms. King.
Thank you. So before we talk to you about our security story, I want to give you a lens into how we see the digital experience changing over the last few years, because that informs how we think about investing in our cybersecurity business and evolving our portfolio. So if we go back just a few decades to the advent of distributed computing, it was a pretty simple world. You had some number of people interacting with some number of applications on a fairly limited set of private networks that weren't really connected to the internet as we know it today. The number of user identities that you had to manage, the number of applications that you had to manage were fairly small, and it felt like a pretty manageable environment. Well, you fast forward a few decades to the World Wide Web as we know it now, and there's an explosion in the number of applications, data, services, content that's being transacted over the internet. If before you had a couple of hundred user identities you were managing or a few applications, now you have thousands and millions. Because it's not just the users in your organization, it's the users, your customers and partners that are interacting with you, with the applications that you've written that are running over the web. And suddenly there's an explosion in the complexity of the infrastructure that you're trying to manage, and the perimeter that you could defend has dissipated. And then with what we have going on now, the Internet of everything, we've got tens of billions of connected devices, the thermostat in your home, the phone that you're carrying around with you. All of these devices are connected and talking to each other in ways that we had never imagined. But here's what's at the heart of all of this. It's about users and applications and the software that's driving the interactions and the experience between those two entities. And it's really that philosophy around users and applications and their interaction that shapes how we think about the security strategy at CA. So Mo, talk about the complexity that companies are facing today.
Yes, ma'am. So the Internet of Everything, that sounds daunting enough from a security perspective, but it's actually worse than that, because if there's any trend that's really driving the security business and driving our entire portfolio, it's the advent of the application economy, with every company, all of you, becoming software companies. When I go out and speak to a major industrial manufacturer or an automotive company, I'm not talking about turbines and trucks. I'm talking about how we can help secure their software and do it at the speed of DevOps. And all of our customers are waist deep in their digital transformation initiatives, from finding new ways to digitally engage their customers, to reinventing the employee experience, to actually retooling their supply chain and their partner ecosystem to optimize it and make it more efficient, to embracing new ways to package software like IoT and microservices. All of you, all of us, are becoming software companies. And the application economy has a profound impact on security. As we rapidly introduce new applications and services to market, as we accelerate the adoption of cloud and mobile and embrace these new technologies like microservices and IoT, we're significantly expanding the threat surface of the businesses that we're trying to protect. And we see that in the stats. We see giant breaches these days, and it seems like we read about one every week or two, and they're accelerating, that wind up having clear patterns. And one of the patterns that Sam will talk to you about in a second is that 90% of known breaches exploit a security vulnerability, 90%. On the other hand, 80% of known breaches exploit a compromised identity, and more egregiously, a compromised privilege identity. We have seen that in many known breaches. And so it's clear that traditional security is not protecting our businesses the way we need it to, and we have to rethink this. So the focus of security now has moved from infrastructure security to application security. Application security on both securing the code, application security on securing the factory that builds the code, and application security built into our new applications and services so that we can help control who accesses what.
And so in this new paradigm, really it becomes about a question of trust. Trust in the user identities and what they should have access to, trust in the software that makes up the applications that run our app economy, and trust in the interactions between those users and applications. And there are 4 core principles that shape our security strategy and that go into our thinking around how we develop our security products and our security product portfolio at CA. The first one I've already talked about, it's trust in users and applications and those interactions. The second one is an age-old debate in the security industry, right? How much do you do from a prevention standpoint so that you prevent a security breach from taking place? And then how much do you do to detect when a breach has occurred and to respond to the breach when it has occurred? And there are some in the industry that will talk about the fact that, look, it's not a question of if you're going to get breached or not, it's a question of when. And the danger in that thinking is that it makes you oversteer your investments in the direction of detection and response. And the reason why that's a problem is if you think about some of the noteworthy breaches that we've read about, WannaCry or Petya, those attacks weren't designed to be low and slow. They were designed to do a lot of damage really fast. So if you had a detection and response strategy, that would be too little too late. The damage is already done. So what we talk about is the fact that you have to have the right balance between doing things from a prevention standpoint and doing things to detect and respond. It can't just be one or the other. It's the right balance between those things. The next thing is around insight, analytics, and then ultimately intelligence. So VERACODE has scanned 6 trillion lines of code to date. That's a lot of software. We've managed millions of user identities. We process more than 1 billion transactions through our payment security business every single year. That's a lot of data and a lot of insights. And we harness all of that to turn it into the intelligence that we apply to continually evolve our service offerings and our products, so that what we bring to the table for you benefits from what we've learned from all of those customers and all of those transactions and all of those interactions. That's how security keeps getting better and keeps doing a better job for you. And the last piece is really the most important in some ways, because it has to be frictionless. Security has to be frictionless. As soon as you introduce friction into the process, either for a developer or for a user, they find ways to circumvent it. And that defeats the purpose that we're all after. So finding ways to make security frictionless. So what I would ask you to think about is, when you think about our product portfolio, think about these 4 principles and the fact that they're shaping how we evolve all of our different technologies and products. And the way that we categorize our portfolio is along these lines. So a set of identity and access management solutions, payment security, API security, because as we know in the modern app economy, most applications are communicating with each other using APIs. So API security becomes really important, and then application security. So let me get us going by talking about application security. I already talked about that first number. I'm going to talk about it again because we're really proud of it. We have scanned 6 trillion lines of code to date.
How many?
6 trillion. That's a really big number, Mo.
Big.
It's a big number. And here's why that matters to you, right? We've scanned code from large companies and small companies, companies whose names you will recognize, and the smallest, most innovative ISVs that are on the bleeding edge of development. We've scanned commercial code and open source code and code from healthcare and insurance and finance and government. So we've seen code from a lot of different places. And what that means is that when you send us an application to test, we're applying the knowledge and the intelligence that we have from all of that software to benefit you in terms of the security of that single application. I can honestly say that CA VERACODE knows more about the security of software than any other company on the planet. And the reason for that is that we've done this in a single cloud platform since day one. So all those applications that we've scanned, all of that intelligence is captured in one place. We're proud to have over 1,400 customers at this point in time, and we've spent a lot of hours, a lot of time with these customers to help them with their application security strategy, to help them understand the policies they should have, how they should run an application security program, and then how they should be remediating the vulnerabilities that we're discovering. As a result of that, we've been recognized as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant 4 years in a running.
How many times?
And what's that?
How many times?
4 times. 4 times. And we have a lot of coverage for lots of different languages and frameworks because software is complex. We do business with companies that have COBOL applications that they're running, and then they're writing something in JavaScript and then everything in between. So broad coverage. But it's really the last stat that's mentioned here that's the most important. Because when it comes to application security, it's not about finding the security vulnerabilities. It starts with that, but it's not about just finding the vulnerabilities. It's about fixing them. Because if you just find the vulnerabilities and you don't fix them, well, you've turned your ignorance into negligence. We don't want to do that, right? We want you to get to the outcome of secure software. So what really matters here is that we've helped our customers fix 35.5 million security flaws. That's 35.5 million security breaches that didn't occur. And that's what's most important. Now, the reason why CA got excited about acquiring VERACODE, if the previous stats weren't enough, is that what VERACODE does around application security really helps stitch together the pillars around Agile and DevOps and security, the identity solutions that CA has. And the principles that we apply to how we think about shaping our application security products is what's depicted here. First of all, we believe that great software is synonymous with secure software. When you talk about the quality of software, you can't talk about the quality of software without thinking about security. Security is a core characteristic of modern software that runs our application economy. And how do you get there? You get there by empowering developers. You know, developers, when they are at college and they're getting their degree and when they start their professional careers, they're not always given training on secure coding. Yet we expect them to produce secure code. That's almost a little unfair. So you have to find ways to empower the development community so that they're creating secure code as they're writing it. It's about integrations, integration into the continuous delivery process that your organization is using. So security is not something that's bolted on. It's plugged into the way everybody is doing their business on an everyday basis. In fact, one of the things that you'll see if you go over to the continuous delivery business unit is an integration that we've done of the VERACODE technology with the continuous delivery director product. So that's where we're integrating our security technology into the orchestration pipeline that the continuous delivery business unit is producing for their customers. The third piece is around early detection, right? One of the problems with application security is a lot of people introduce it very late in the development lifecycle. And the problem with that is that then you have a lot of other pressures around releasing your code to market, and security then starts to feel like a thing that's creating friction. So the idea is to move security testing earlier into the development lifecycle. And then the last piece is automation. So what we have is an automated cloud platform, because automation basically gets you speed. And automation allows you to do security testing at the speed of DevOps. So let me talk to you about the use cases that emerge with those principles in mind. Security testing really started in the middle. It was this concept of security assurance. It was compliance-driven, where security teams would take a look at software applications just before they were being released into production, pull them over, test them, find a list of security vulnerabilities, and then go back to developers and say, hey, here's everything that I found, and you need to fix it. Well, the problem with that approach is you're asking developers to do extra work that they had not anticipated just at the point in time where they're feeling the pressure to release these applications into production, and you get a lot of resistance. And the question comes up, well, why are you telling me about these problems here? Why could you have not told me about these problems as I was actually writing my code? So a lot of the work that has happened in our category and at VERACODE over the last few years is around taking those security testing controls that were being applied at the release gate and moving them into the earlier stages of the software development lifecycle. So you're providing developers with insight into the vulnerabilities that they're creating right as they're writing code. And one of the things that I'm very excited about is we're launching expanded coverage for a product called VERACODE Greenlight and a free trial for VERACODE Greenlight, where this product is about giving the experience to a developer where right in their IDE, as they're writing code, we give them feedback on where they might have created security vulnerabilities so that they can fix it very, very early. And then there's another use case, which is around operational application security. No matter how much testing you do, applications will get released that have vulnerabilities in them. So it's important to also have security controls that are running in your production environment, that are monitoring your application infrastructure and giving you visibility into what are the risks in the operational environment. The most important thing here, though, is the shift left, because that's what's turning DevOps into DevSecOps. We have a customer that increased their scan frequency by moving all of their security testing further left. They increased their scan frequency by about 20%. And the number of vulnerabilities that they were finding at this stage went down by nearly 50%. So that helped them speed up their process around this whole DevSecOps area. The other thing is that not only is this the right thing to do, it makes economical sense, because there's data that tells you that when you find a vulnerability in production, it is 30x the cost of fixing it when you find it early. So it's the right thing to do, and it's the most cost-effective thing to do, to take these security controls and move them earlier into the development lifecycle. So there's a lot going on this slide. This slide depicts all of the different products that VERACODE has around application security. And the reason why there is so much going on in this slide is because we do a lot. And we've invested a lot in building out our application security portfolio over the last many years. What you should know, though, is that with the different technologies that we have around static and dynamic and open source software composition analysis, we are able to cover the entirety of the software development lifecycle, all the way from when a developer is writing code, like what I was describing with Greenlight, to when your applications are actually running in production. And you can take these technologies and apply them to the code that you're writing, but also the code that you're buying from third-party vendors. Because don't forget, the applications that run your companies, the applications that run the app economy, aren't just code that your own developers wrote, but a lot of third-party commercial applications that you might be getting from other sources or open source code. So you can apply it to applications you're writing, applications you're buying, open source code, and different types of applications, web applications, mobile applications, et cetera. And all of these things are available in a single place. So you don't have to worry about stitching together these technologies. You can shift your focus on, instead of implementing technology to do application security, driving to the outcome of secure software by focusing on the fixing and the remediation, which is really what matters. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mo and have him talk about the identity portfolio.
Thank you, Sam. So we're talking about application security, and we just heard Sam talk about how you secure the software. Well, the other side of application security has to do with identity. Identity is foundational to application security because it's really the capability that governs who gets to access what application, what service, what piece of data. In that respect, it's really become the new perimeter of the application economy. The interesting thing about next generation identity and access management is that it serves a dual role. Not only is it attempting to secure the identity and secure you from breaches associated with the identity like compromise and fraud, but it has another role. Its role is to allow application developers, allow businesses to reduce the friction between applications and their targets. So if I know who you are, it's possible, and I know that there's a low-risk target, I don't have to do that much authentication. If you're transferring money from a bank account, that's a different story. So to accomplish both these outcomes, to kind of balance security and reducing friction, you have to embrace some fundamental tenets. One is hybrid cloud. All our enterprises are moving aggressively to adopt cloud, to adopt infrastructure as a service. It's important that our identity platforms evolve with that because we have to handle what the new enterprise is, and we have to handle it at scale. Sam also talked about empowering the developer, and it has to happen on the identity side as well as the application testing side. So you have to make sure that you think API first, that you're API enabling your platform so it's easier for developers to build in, it's easier to do third-party integrations, it's easier to automate operations, and that's a critical tenet. And the last piece is to embed intelligence, to leverage behavioral analytics, data science, so that we can find the low and slows, so that we can find abnormal behavior, so that we can baseline normal behavior. Those are the fundamental tenets of what a new identity and access management platform needs. So one example of this is the latest release we have of our Privileged Access Manager, Privileged Access Manager 3.0, and it really kind of encompasses all these pieces. So we've added hybrid cloud extensions so that we've significantly enhanced our AWS support. We've API enabled it so that you can automate operations, but you can also integrate. And we've used the APIs to do integration ourselves because we know integration of our portfolio is important to our customers. So we've integrated it with our Identity Suite, which is our identity management and governance product, so that you can do privileged user governance. And you install both products and it works out of the gate. We've also integrated it with release automation and our CI/CD toolchain to protect the software factory, that application supply chain that we were talking about, because CI/CD creates a new set of privileged users, the set of admins and folks who have control of that entire supply chain. And so the final piece is that we've embedded in a product called Threat Analytics for PAM, machine learning and analytics for us to baseline normal behavior and then detect anomalous behavior, which is specifically what you have to wind up doing to detect insider threat. Insider threat has been very difficult to detect. It's been very hard to find on the privilege case, and you can't do it. You can't be a modern security platform without completely embracing analytics and machine learning. So on the empowering the developer side, we released a new product called Rapid App Security. It's an API first product, and it's whole theme is to allow developers to quickly incorporate risk-based authentication into applications. It's an integration between our industry-leading mobile API gateway with our advanced authentication product, wrapped in APIs and an SDK, with the whole idea, as I said, to empower the developer to incorporate authentication into all their applications. This lends to application security. And I think the shining star of us being able to leverage analytics to both balance security and friction is our payment security service. So our payment security service does fraud detection on the back of credit card not present transactions. So as you buy something over the web, our service is doing an analysis and assigns a risk quotient to that transaction. And if it seems odd, if it seems unusual, our issuers can wind up doing a step-up authentication. That's what the product winds up doing. But to do that requires deep analytics and data science to figure out what's fraud, what's unusual activity, and what isn't. And it's incredibly important in the payment business and the credit card business because on one side you want to reduce fraud, that's the security side. But on the reducing friction side, and this is incredibly important in payment security, you want to make sure that the purchasers, you guys, aren't abandoning transactions. So if you introduce too much friction into the system, you'll say, like, I don't want to respond to this, I'm going to drop my transaction, and that doesn't work for businesses either. And so to get a view of a customer of ours who employs this, to see how these platforms actually allow you to do this balance, we have a video that Royal Bank of Scotland was kind enough to make. Let's roll it.
Here at RBS, our primary business objective is to be the #1 for customer service, trust and advocacy. And prior to 2015, we felt we weren't delivering that for our customers. One of the reasons that we weren't delivering that was we were being overly cautious when customers were transacting online. And rather than having an adaptive solution that risk-based authenticated the transactions as they came through, we had a blanket approach, which meant every single customer had to type in a password for every single 3D secure transaction they wanted to do online. And at the time when that was launched, that seemed an appropriate measure to keep our customers safe and secure. What we found leading up to 2015 is there are now new situations where we're not as agile as a bank to give the customer the right experience they need to conduct their basic day-to-day activities. We were keen to ensure that to keep our customers safe and secure, we allowed the right transactions to go through without any interruption, while protecting our customers by challenging or declining the transactions we felt were a little bit more risky. And to do that, we wanted to utilize CA's risk analytics. By doing that, it allowed all of the transactions as they came through real time to be scored. And this enabled us, with a great deal of confidence, to be able to appropriately challenge the right customers each time for the transactions that we felt were unusual.
CA Risk Analytics has helped improve our genuine customer experience because in today's world we don't need to challenge 100% of customers when they're transacting. With CA Risk Analytics, we only need to challenge 10 to 20% of customers. This is because we can rely on the fraud score to accurately detect fraud.
So I think that turns out to be a perfect example of what I was talking about. That's next generation identity. How do you wind up balancing security, which in this case is fraud prevention, and reducing friction, which is in this case is not having abandoned transactions. The risk engine and the analytics engine inside of the payment security service is the engine that is being deployed throughout our entire identity portfolio. So I'll zoom out for a second. I've kind of given you some examples of what we're doing with some products and embracing these new tenets of next generation identity. But CA and CA Security provides a broad portfolio of identity products, from identity governance and management to advanced authentication to single sign-on to privilege access. We've been investing heavily this year, and I think you'll see it as you go out there, in integrating the components, introducing and embracing risk and data science in all of them, API enabling all the products, and extending them for hybrid cloud. So we're investing heavily in creating this next generation identity platform so that you can wind up building your next generation of applications and services on top of it. So that is the end of our monologue today. We're going to move on and bring a customer up here and chat a little bit about their usage of our products. And the first one is a name that I think we all know. It's an iconic name. It's FedEx. And I'm going to invite Trey Ray up here to join me.
Morning, Mo.
Good morning. So FedEx is a large customer of ours, our entire identity portfolio, the most recent of which is our privilege access management product. And so Trey's in charge of that product. So we thought he'd be a great guy to talk about his experiences. But let's start up by talking about what's your role and what does your organization look like?
Sure, Mo. I'm a frontline manager in the information security division at FedEx. I'm responsible for identity and access management, strong authentication, and physical access security. And my latest endeavor is privileged access management, which is why I'm on the stage here with you this morning, Mo. So I manage a team of 14 cybersecurity professionals. 4 of those are actually dedicated to our PAM effort, and I think 2 of them are actually sitting out here in the crowd somewhere. So as you might expect, FedEx is a massive enterprise. My team is responsible for securing almost 500,000 identities, and that consists of our internal employees and contingent workers across multiple operating companies. We've got 10 Active Directory force that we've acquired over acquisitions the last several years. Active Directory force are kind of like luggage, you never get rid of them. And then we literally have thousands of Unix servers, Windows servers, and Oracle databases that my team is responsible for securing.
That's great, Trey. I know that one of the things we pride ourselves on is application at scale, and it sounds like we're doing that with you. So what's the impact of privilege access on an organization with as giant set of IT infrastructure as you have?
So access management has always been a big deal for FedEx. As I mentioned, we've got thousands of employees who require on access to many different systems, ranging from legacy applications still running on the mainframe to the most modern SaaS and cloud applications. As a matter of fact, we just moved our HR environment to Workday a few months ago. We've always done a really good job of handling standard levels of access with automated provisioning systems that we've used over the years, but privileged access management has its own set of challenges. So what we are aiming to do with this first wave of privileged access management is to secure our Windows and Active Directory environment, our Unix servers, our virtual environment with VMware, as well as our database space, and while at the same time satisfying our regulatory and compliance obligations in the SOX, PCI, and HIPAA areas.
That's always an important one, right? So deploying privileged access management, it's never a walk in the park, but it's critical to a certain set of goals. Like, how did this product help you achieve those goals?
All right, so we're using CA PAM to do a couple of things to secure our most valuable IT resources. We're using 2-factor authentication paired up with one-time passwords that we rotate regularly. You check in, check out model, and as soon as the administrator's done, we'll rotate that password to kind of eliminate that typical horizontal attack surface that gets out there. CA PAM has lots of out-of-the-box canned reports that can tell you things like how many accounts you're securing, how many passwords have been rotated today. There's a nice built-in admin console when you log in, so administrators can actually see the health of the appliances and make sure everything's running smoothly. And we've also integrated CA PAM with our SIM solution for automated alerts and things like that.
So I'm feeling better about our product as the more you speak. So I know you're doing a session a little later on this afternoon, which we greatly appreciate, about your deployment what are going to be some of the key things you're going to cover?
That's right, 4:15 this afternoon at the same theater. Myself and two of my employees, we're going to be doing a case study on the FedEx deployment of CA-PAM. We're going to talk about best practices, things that we've learned through our deployment this past year. We're going to talk about the FedEx organizational requirements. One of the most important things that we're going to talk about is the change in the FedEx culture. How do you adapt your administrators to this new type of doing business?
That has to be an interesting part of the conversation, right? So, and I'm sure that's one of your learnings. So, you know, you've gone through this process. Like, what have you learned that's valuable to share with the rest of the crowd here?
Well, first and foremost, you want to make sure that your PAM project has executive backing. Make no mistake, a product like CA-PAM does change the way your IT administrators do their daily job, so it's good to have that big stick that a CISO can give you when you get pushback from your Unix admins and things like that.
You mean the admins didn't embrace you right out of the gate?
They don't necessarily love it,
Okay.
but to be honest with you, in some aspects, it does make things easier. For example, in the Windows environment, you can give them this nice RDP launcher to get to all their servers. So it's not all bad for the IT admin.
It's a little candy.
All right, a little candy there. Second, definitely secure your Windows and Active Directory environments first. Go after them first, because let's make no mistake, that's where the vulnerabilities and the exploits live. And as we learned this past summer, that's where the new breed of weaponized malware can do the most damage. You guys probably already all have your own automated provisioning solutions and two-factor authentication solutions. Go ahead and integrate those with PAM. You don't have to rip and replace. PAM uses protocols like Radius. So if you're using a third-party two-factor authentication system, if it speaks Radius, you can implement it with CA-PAM just fine. And lastly, test. You don't want any surprises once you put PAM in the production environment, so test it thoroughly.
Trey, thank you for joining me up on stage. It's an honor to have FedEx as a customer of ours, and good luck with your session later this afternoon.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Mo. So the next customer that I want to call up here to talk about their application security journey is Mark Murkow from Charles Schwab. Please come on up here, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So first of all, let me just say thank you so much for your business and for your support over the years, and thank you for joining us at CA World today.
Thanks
We
for
really
having us.
appreciate it.
It's a privilege and an honor to be here.
Thank you. The privilege is ours. Thank you. So I'm going to go off script for a moment.
All right.
And I know I just gave our entire team back there a heart attack, but it's okay. We got it. Don't worry about it. We were having a conversation earlier, just before we got started with the keynote, and you probably gave me the best answer for how a company can motivate someone to really perform well in their jobs. So talk about what Charles Schwab had you do when you started to really care about your job.
Sure. So Schwab makes sure that all of your retirement savings, brokerage, all relationships get moved to Schwab, and all external accounts are closed because they take insider trading and shenanigans like that very seriously.
So you had to close all your other accounts and
All
move
brokerage
everything to
accounts,
Schwab.
right? 401ks, IRAs, brokerage, anything related to market activity. But the side effect is it makes those of us in security working to protect our own nest egg. So there's really nothing more motivating than knowing that we're actually protecting ourselves in the process.
So that's a very smart move by Schwab.
Yeah, it's
it
brilliant.
really motivates you at
It
a
really
personal
is,
level,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right. So let me start by talking to you about Charles Schwab is obviously a very complex environment. I think you are managing 2.9 trillion in assets for something like 12.8 million institutional investors. So that's a lot.
Yeah, it's massive.
That's a lot of money that you're managing. And it's a complex organization with, I imagine, a lot of developers in a lot of different locations.
Yep.
So talk about how did you think about the challenges that you face as a result of this complex organization, and how did you think about rolling out application security inside of Schwab?
So software development groups are organized by silos. They support various aspects of different products, and what our group is a cross-cutting function, basically part of the technologies operation for security design and engineering. to help cut across all of those silos and bring about common, processes, tools, techniques, languages, training, all of that. So with software security, the most important aspect to address is that it's a people problem. It is not a technical problem on its own. The technology will not solve it. It helps to enable investigations and discovery and things like that, but the technology alone is no good if people don't understand how to use it, what it's telling them, and ultimately what to do about the problem. So we spent an awful lot of effort getting people integrated into the idea that software security is a human problem. It's a problem that only they can understand for their applications, and it's certainly a problem only they can fix. So we have to enable them with the right skills, tools, technology, knowledge, whatever it takes to help hold their hands and make sure they actually fix things.
Yeah. And I think you've done 20,000 scans at this point in time and remediated a few 100,000 vulnerabilities.
Every time a new application comes into the process, they also have to set it up for automated scans at release time. So anytime that app is re-released, it gets another scan automatically run. So it's constantly checking the security of it.
Talk about some of the things that you did to get developers on board, right? Because you describe it as a people problem, and I totally agree. You have to get developers bought into this mindset.
Right.
What are some things that you tried?
So what we did is, as we inventoried and prioritized all the applications by security assurance level that we use, we also brought along with them, with that application, as we onboarded into the tool, we brought the development team and the product owner, as well as anybody who has any role in the development of that app, whether it's a developer, analyst, architect, whatnot, and we enrolled them into role-based training. So they're getting the skills, getting the knowledge, getting the techniques as they need it. So as the scans come back, now they actually have a chance to understand what it's telling them and to address what to do about it.
That's great. So talking about what to do about it, one of the things I talked about was it's not about finding the security vulnerabilities, it starts there, but it's about fixing them. So how did you go about your fixing and remediation journey?
So as we, like I said, we were very gentle and hands-on approach with the developers. VERACODE was incredibly helpful with the readout aspect of the tool, where they would get the scan and start to look at the code. It's tagged where that vulnerability might exist, and they're still confused. So they click the request readout, and within a day or so, they get a help from VERACODE. That help has been incredible, especially at first, because they're gentle with them as well. So they're not, we're not punishing anybody for making these mistakes or embarrassing them or anything like that.
Yeah, we try not to scan and scold.
Right, no scan and scold. So it's not only useful in fixing those particular problems that this scan exposes, but it also educates them and gives them things to think about and ways to think about the problem, so that if it exists in other forms, in other parts of the application or in other applications, they have the right knowledge and paradigm to address it.
That's great. And how would you say your application security program is running today, and what are the results that you've been able to achieve?
Well, the results are, some are very unexpected. So for example, we'll get people who want to engage with the software security team because they're so interested in it, they want to be professionals, security people, which is really surprising. Some even will take what they've learned and the experience and sit for CSSLP, the exam from ISC squared.
Fantastic.
A couple of them, out of the blue, they do that, and then I get a call asking, will I endorse them, because I'm one of the few that have that certificate. So it's fascinating seeing, and then we asked them, how did you get to this point? What motivated you? And they said, well, it was all your training, it was all your outreach, it was your implementation of the tools, it was VERACODE, it was a little bit of everything. So balance it all together, you know, and change people's behavior gently and effectively, and amazing things happen.
It sounds like you've not just empowered them, you've turned them into champions for security.
Exactly,
which
exactly.
is
And what
fantastic.
happens is they begin to demand tools.
Yeah.
We're seeing that with Greenlight.
Yes.
So we peppered a few groups with first a Java implementation in Eclipse, and once they worked out all the logistics and whatnot, the configuration to make it work, suddenly they're addicted. And
That was our goal, so I'm glad to hear it.
they start telling their friends, and now with the .NET version of it, we've got people almost every week saying, how do I get my hands on this?
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
That's
it
great.
really is.
Well, it's wonderful to hear your story, and congratulations on the
Thank
great
you so
results
much.
you've achieved. And thank you again for being here, Mark.
Appreciate it very much.
I just want you to know that I have a Schwab brokerage account as well, so I feel positive. So one thing that's incredibly important to CA Security is our partner ecosystem, and one of the best that we work with for a long time on major digital transformations is DXC. Last year, I had Art Wong, who's the SVP and General Manager of DXC Security, join me via video. This year, I'm going to have the real thing come up on stage and we'll talk to him.
Thank you so much for having me here. I've known this guy for about 17 years now, and he's a great guy.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us here. Like I know your CEO is waiting for you to get off stage for a call, so I certainly appreciate it. So describe your business, describe what you do at DXC.
Well, DXC is the world-leading independent end-to-end IT services company in the world. We're really uniquely positioned to lead customers through their digital transformations. Now, as the GM in the security business for DXC, I run one of the world's largest security services business in the world. We provide managed security services and consulting services to some of the largest enterprises and organizations around the world. We have the ability to actually provide an end-to-end solution and capability for our customers to be able to do everything from architecture and design, audit and assessment, implementation of solutions and products, all the way through to manage and run.
And what are you hearing from them? What are their kind of key next set of important initiatives?
Well, some of the challenges that we've seen when talking to all of our customers and some of the trends that we see out there, well, first of all, every single customer has three major security challenges out there. One is being a highly aggressive, innovative, collaborative adversary or hacker that's out there. And we've seen that they continue to innovate in the things that they do. They have a huge ecosystem where the hacker ecosystem of adversaries is over $100 billion a year. We've seen that they're so well organized and that they sometimes are even nation states that that they go after not traditionally just financial assets, but they're going after IP that they want to be able to get from organizations and from other companies. That's one major challenge all of our customers see. The second one is really around compliance and regulations. We've seen that there's been more regulations and there's been an increase in regulations in every single industry that our customers are in. And that increased regulation is causing complexity and leading to greater vulnerabilities within their organization when it comes to security. And then the third challenge that all of our customers are facing out there is a security skills gap. There is the supply of security professionals and security skills out there is far less than the demand for these same people and these same skills. And so the gap is actually increasing. Is certainly a trend that we're seeing. And what we recommend is that every company out there, they've got to be able to protect their most critical assets. That's their users, their applications, their data, and the interactions between them. And of particular interest is really protecting the user. There's not a lot of attention that's paid to protecting the user, yet that is an area of great attack. When you take a look at some of the data that we've been seeing, 80% of all targeted attacks have been attacking privileged access user rights. That, for some people, would say that identity might even be the new perimeter. I'd rather say it is another perimeter in the attack surface.
So I know that you have a giant internal initiative going on inside of DXC called Identity 2.0, and I know that we're working together on this so we can deliver a new set of next generation services to your customers. And I also know you have a call with your CEO in a few minutes. So I'm going to combine these last two questions, and maybe you can talk a little bit about Identity 2.0 and a little bit about how we're working together.
I sure will. Look, when I talked about the users as being something that you have to protect in an organization, it is one of the most attacked assets, and that's usually where you have the greatest vulnerability. It is the weakest link. Your employees, your users are always going to be your weakest links, and when we take a look at all the threats and breaches and attacks that have occurred, a common method or a common attack surface is attacking the user. And so we're building Identity 2.0 to be able to protect this user, and we're partnering with CA in order to build some of these solutions. When we looked at building this solution to be able to help manage and secure users and their identities, we had to find a partner that had scalable technology, that had a pedigree where identity and access management had been long part of their pedigree. And CA and your market-leading technologies, specifically around privileged access management and identity management, really fit that criteria, because we deliver services and provide solutions to some of the largest companies in the world. We need a technology that is going to be incorporated in a solution that's going to be scalable as well. It's not good enough that a technology works, it's got to work at scale. And you definitely have those products that work at scale. And so we built a service, a privileged access management service on top of your technology that we just launched last month. In our next calendar year, early next calendar year, we're actually launching our identity management as a service offering, which is based upon the CA identity management platform that you have. Because again, we feel that it's critical that we have scalable technology that works great and works at scale with very large companies.
Art, we're incredibly excited about you working together on Identity 2.0. We're incredibly excited to have DXC as one of our fantastic partners. Thank you for showing up today. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Art Wong, SVP and General Manager of DXC Security.
I think we can bring up all three at the same time.
Okay, we close. I know we're running late, but we're going to close with a set of Breaking Barrier Awards for some special customers who've done some fantastic things, and Sam and I are going to split these. So the first one we'd like to bring up is SGN, and the CISO of SGN, Mo Adoud. Okay, we're giving him a double dose of Mo.
Thanks.
There you go, Mo.
Lovely, thank you.
So, no, don't go anywhere, don't go anywhere. So around the world, critical infrastructure is incredibly important, and SGN has gone through this amazing transformation, and part of that transformation is they've led the path by moving your IT structure completely into the cloud, and to protect that, we've worked together, and SGN has now become a model in the UK and Europe for how you do that thing. It's great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
So the second company to bring on board is, or on stage, is Home Depot, Todd Oxford. Can we have a Todd Oxford? Oh, here we go. Okay, obviously an iconic brand, a great customer of ours. Oh, here we go.
Like I'm an Oscar award.
I know, you were hoping for a cruise, right? Anyway, we are honored to have you as a customer. I know we work closely together. I think we've done some amazing things on digital transformation, so thank you so much.
And the third award recipient will not come as any surprise given the story I shared earlier, but the third person I'd like to invite up is Mark Murkow from Charles Schwab.
Here we go.
Just fantastic results and fantastic effort at Charles Schwab. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mark. Everybody, Mark Murkow. All right, and since we're way over time, we will very quickly tell you about the things that we want you to do when we get to the next slide. Here we go. Mo, what do we want people to do?
Okay, there's lots of things for you to see. Please go out there and see some of the new innovations. We have new product releases. We have previews of new things in progress. Go see our customers. Mo Adud is going to be speaking. Trey Ray is going to be speaking. Go see these guys and meet with our product teams. Find out, meet face to face with the folks that you deal with and figure out, talk to them, establish a relationship. Go out and do that thing. There's an enormous amount of innovation that you should go see, and it's important.
And with that, we want to thank you for joining us today, and we thank you for your support.
Thank you, everybody.